Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be about the books that I read in the month of October that were before the Spooktober readathon. So I'm going to do a separate video for those books later on. I actually had one of the best months I've probably ever had in my life when it comes to books. I've had a really hard time in the springtime and over the summer picking and reading books that I liked, but for whatever reason I picked some really great books this month and I'm really happy with them, so I wanted to share that with you guys. The first one I want to talk about is this one. It's called In a Dark Place by Ed and Lorraine Warren. I don't know if you can see that without a glare. This book was terrifying and it was absolutely perfect for the month of October. This book is based off of a true story. They actually made a movie about the events in this book, and that is The Haunting in Connecticut. This book is about a family who have 3 or 4 children. I think it's 4, and one of them has cancer and he has to go get treatments in a hospital that's really far away from where they live. So they decide to move to be closer to the hospital, and the house they move into turns out to be possessed by demons. It used to be a funeral home or a mortuary, I think that's what you call it, where they would bring the dead bodies in and do the stuff to the bodies that they do. I'm losing words today. They would do the stuff that they would do to get them ready for burial in that house. But the man who did that, is that the undertaker, the mortuary guy? I am really seriously losing words. Anyway, the guy who would do that to the bodies was a sick, disgusting person, and he would do sexual things with the bodies. So by doing the things that he was doing and the place that it opened the house up to be possessed by demons. So this family moves into the house and slowly things start happening. They start hearing whispers and things start getting moved. Things escalate and they have to hire Ed and Lorraine Warren, which are real demonologists. They come to the house and they bring a whole crew of people to come with them because they have to document all of the things that are going on in the house so that they can go to the Catholic Church and convince them to perform an exorcism on the house. There is some really sick and disturbing shit that goes on in this book. I was really not prepared and not expecting some of the things that happened. There is actually a demon rape scene. Well, there's several demon rape scenes in this book, so it is not an easy read. It is not for teenagers or children at all. So it really was a difficult book to read, but it was totally enlightening and it really scared the shit out of me. Next I read This House is Haunted by John Boyne. This book was fantastic. I highly recommend this book if you want something with a ghost story in it or a haunting in it, but that isn't that scary. It definitely gives you the creepy, eerie vibes of a haunting story. This book is so beautifully written. They say in here that it's written in Emily Dickinson prose, and it probably is. I haven't read anything by her, but it is absolutely beautiful writing. It's basically about this young woman who is a school teacher to girls, and her father dies, leaving her destitute. She answers an ad in the paper for a caretaker or a mistress for these children that live in a manor kind of far away from London where she lives. And when she arrives at the manor, she finds out that neither of the parents are around, and she's been thrown into this crazy situation where she just doesn't understand what's going on and where the grown-ups are, and the kids are really weird. There's a ghost in the story who does not like the new mistress and basically tries to kill her throughout the book. But this book is not scary. It's just eerie and gives you the haunting feels, but it's just beautiful, and I definitely think if you like historical fiction, you should definitely pick up this book. This next one I read was My Best Friend's Exorcism, written by Grady Hendrix, and oh my gosh, the feels that came with this book. I love this book so much. This book was not scary. Well, it did get scary towards the end, like the last 100 pages or so, but the whole beginning and middle are not scary at all. This book is set in the 80s, and it surrounds a group of friends, especially two best friends, who love and adore each other, and one of them becomes possessed, and I'm not giving anything away because obviously the title, but one of them becomes possessed and the other one tries to save her friends. The way this book described the 80s was perfection. I was born in the 70s, I was a child through the 80s, and it just brought back so many memories. The song titles that they used, and where one of the teenage girls works. She worked at a yogurt shop called TCBY, and I don't think those exist anymore, but I used to go to those all the time. This book was just an absolute trip to go through. And the friend relationships that they had in this book were just so realistic. I can remember, you know, being in elementary school and middle school and being bullied and how that felt. And there's bullying going on in this story. I remember how it felt to have, you know, an absolute best friend that you would die for and that you spent every second with. And that is in this story. And then the end of this book actually broke my heart, and I was sobbing like a little baby. I just loved it so much. It is so much more than what you might expect by the title. You might think maybe a cheesy, scary story, but it is so much more than that. And I definitely recommend reading this book, but with a disclaimer that if you didn't grow up in the 80s, you might not get a lot of the references that they use in this book, so it might not speak to you the way that it spoke to me. I listened to part of this in the car on Audible when I was running my son around, and there were a lot of things that he just did not get, and I would actually stop it and explain certain things to him just so he could understand the references. But yeah, this book was amazing, and it's definitely one of my most favorite books I've ever read. Moving on to the last book, that is Johannes Cabal, the Necromancer by Jonathan L. Howard. This book was so good. This is one of those books that when you read it, you think this would make such a good movie. This one is about a man named Johannes Cabal, and he sold his soul to the devil so he could perform necromancies. And you don't really find out why it's so important to him to perform these necromancies in this novel. This is a whole series. I think there's like 5 or 6 of them. But he sold his soul to the devil, and he realized that to be able to do like a very specific spell or something, he needs to actually have his soul to perform what he needs to perform. So he goes down to hell and he makes a deal with the devil that if he can get the devil 100 souls within a year, the devil will give him his soul back. And the devil gives Johannes a carnival to help him collect the souls. And so this book is about his adventures going around England with this carnival that's made up of people that he basically brought back to life or from hell. And it is so funny. He has a brother who is a vampire, and he convinces his brother to come along with him for the year to help him. And the relationship he has with his brother is so hilarious. I really enjoyed a lot of the people that worked at the carnival. Their characters were so different from anything I've ever read. I love this book so much. Anyway, I cannot wait to get into the next book. I'm definitely going to pick that up. I think it's called Johannes Cabal, the Detective. This book also really reminded me of Neil Gaiman's writing. So if you like Neil Gaiman, or especially his book Good Omens, this book reminded me a ton of Good Omens. It had the same kind of storytelling and the same vibe to it, and I loved Good Omens. So yeah, if you're a fan of Neil Gaiman, definitely read this book. Alright guys, that is it for this video. If you have read any of these books, let me know what you thought of them. I really could not have asked for a better reading month, and it's just made me more excited to continue reading and finding more stuff that I love in November. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day, and I will see you all later. Bye.